Corpse Flower by William Bove. The man arose in bed to speak and was thrown back into his pillow with a fit of convulsive coughing. He desperately tried to speak, but the words would not come. He mustered up his strength, and with a strong oomph, one last attempt to speak was made, but all that came out was a spattering of blood. The blood hit the comforter which rested upon his body, now jolted and disheveled due to the man's violent spree of sputtering and shaking that left the man dazed and exhausted. The words had tried to escape his mouth, daring to free themselves from the prison of his lips, but the efforts were all for naught, and the only reward for his efforts lay in a wet red stain in front of him on the bed. His skin was pale like paper, and his body just as fragile. Yet he could move and create action, albeit his range was short and limited by his advanced tuberculosis. Framed in sweat and weary from exhaustion, his breath swam as sure and as shallow as the life in his eyes, floating in a kind of weary daze that recognized only fleeting flashes of life. He tried to speak again, marshaling all of his powers of movement. He sat up halfway, supporting himself on a crooked arm almost into an elbow. Find me unconventional means for a cure. Search the most shadowy parts of London if you have to, and all the fiends and wretches you find there. Find me an answer that shrinks from the light of day and thrives by nightfall. More blood crawled down over his lips, yet the man remained determined against the inevitable clutch of consumption that possessed him. Robbed of all energy, the man collapsed into his pillows. The once fluffy cushions of white that cradled his head had stained and turned brown to sweat, dander, and blood that drained from his mouth, like daring bits of life seeking to escape a disease that harbored a savage hunger for every scrap of life it could consume faster than the man could find it and protect it. The doctor says you have only 1 month to live. His servant's half-hearted attempt to reassure his employer to conserve his strength and energy only fell on deaf ears. The man returned his statement with a hard, stern look with distaste. Find me the answer, now. Perhaps, sir, if you wait long enough, you can seek the answers for yourself. I assure you that you will pass before me. His servant stumbled, nearly tripping over his own foot as he approached the door to leave the room. The man replied with an amusing snort like a pig who was satisfied after being slopped. The next day, a telegram arrived from a source speaking of an appointment for a seance at 7 p.m. that evening, signed only with a valediction that said, "A friend." Not the most formal of ways to end a letter, especially to someone of the man's station, but he cared little for formality at this point in his life. The evening of the seance could not come soon enough. All day the man lay in his bed, no appetite, little sleep, and near negligible appetite for life that reflected the pallor of his skin, now near dead with exhaustion, only clinging to him like a lump of crumpled laundry. It took a group of servants to not only collect the man, but bring him into the room where the seance was to be held, and sit him comfortably, or as comfortably as possible, in a chair that had been specifically placed for him at the table. The medium wanted him as close as he could possibly be to her without crowding her energies and concentration for the task at hand. She wanted the one closest to death to sit near her, so near that her breath may aid in helping him to live a little longer, but not so near that she herself would catch her death from clinging so desperately to the grave. This was not a normal practice with mediums in Victorian London, but on this night it was necessary to take liberties. As many liberties as it took to accomplish the deed. The table was clothed in a black cloth. So black was this cloth that it appeared to be ripped from the night sky itself and fashioned into an acceptable place covering for the evening. In the center of the table, exact dead center of the table, was placed a human skull, not a blemish, not a crack, not one ghoulish feature was out of place. The man jerked immediately from the table at seeing the skull and was steadied by his servants. He seemed too weak to respond with scorn, and only delivered an icy glare to those who helped him. After steadying himself in as much as he could, the man, shivering, looked to the medium, who sat as calm as a corpse taken in a death photo. His eyes wide with surprise. All he could do was stare at the medium. Her youth, her beauty, her gift of manner and decorum had struck him so suddenly that the scene nearly robbed him of breath. "Are you troubled, sir?" No, I expected an older and unattractive woman, scabby and gnarled because of her gift. The man sat dumbfounded, stumbling to thrash her verbally for her insult to a man of his station. Seizing the opportunity, she struck. "I can assure you I am well trained and come highly recommended in these circles. May we begin?" She reached down and brought up a rose and a box from beneath the black finery that graced the table. Gesturing over the rose, "Should the seance be favorable, I will present you with the rose. Should the seance prove ill, I will push the box over to you, a box filled with ashes, which is what awaits you in your future." A man standing in a corner, whom the man took no prior notice of, came over to the girl and handed her a quill pen and piece of parchment paper. He then returned to his corner. A few moments passed in silence and quiet meditation, needed to reach the other side. Then the room filled with a chill that came suddenly and blindsided the man. The man began to shiver and found his teeth rattling like bones knocking together. The medium's eyes had instantly washed over white. No pupils, no sign of life. Just white pale, white like the moon in the autumn sky. A dreary dread embraced the room, and a gloom fell over the man's blood, weighing heavy on his soul. A kind of withering tore through the man's very flesh of his body. It took for a moment his life's breath, but left no visible wound to speak of on his person. His servants darted over to steady him so he would not fall from his chair. The fingers leapt from his skin, but their hands held true. His body felt like a corpse, just like a corpse that is ready for autopsy. The dread filled their eyes, but the fear of the moment could not make them leave. In the same moment, the medium had been writing and muttering in a language that seemed primal and foreign, even for the moment in hand. Her hand went limp, and her eyes returned to their normal state, and she was done writing. She looked to the man and smiled, giving him the rose. "It was favorable, good sir. A contact has been made, and someone will come to help you tomorrow night. Listen to all that he says and follow his instruction, for without it your end is most certainly assured." His mouth tried to form the words, "How dare you?" and like the crack of a whip, the man from the corner was next to the medium, brandishing a knife for the man to see. He shrank immediately, lost his nerve, and fell silent. "You won't be seeing me again, sir. Thank you for a lively evening," she said, smirking as she jingled the coin purse she had been given not even moments ago. The man from the corner escorted her beyond the room, and all that was heard was the closing of a door. The next day, a large plant was delivered to him. The plant stood some 6, almost 7 feet in height, and measuring near 4 feet in width, having a curious shaped base and a staff-like growth rising from its center. The man immediately recognized it from the papers read to him by the servants. A corpse flower. "It's a corpse flower." A note was attached that read, "A gift from a friend who will be arriving shortly." The plant was known to hold a bizarre odor of decay and rotting meat that smelled more like a hunk of rotting human flesh. But the only scent coming from the plant just now seemed to be a heady musk reminiscent of rare and exotic perfumes found only in regions like India. The man was so enamored with the plant, he neither questioned anything by its arrival, nor did he hear his new guest arrive and stand waiting right behind him. One of his servants cleared his throat and announced a short, bent shape of a man, with hands like old burlap and eyes that looked both cunning and inviting. The guest reached through the space between them, extending a gesture of greeting that at first the man felt naturally inclined to back away from, but couldn't explain why. "I am the caretaker," the little man said, "and I am pleased to meet you and to help you, my friend." The man's eyes fluttered with confusion. I'm pleased to meet you as well, sir, and thank you for coming. This plant you have brought me has all of London intrigued, including myself. What will you do with it to help me?" A strange buzzing began to fill the air, akin to the kind of buzzing a fly would make, but the noise was different, sharper and more sudden. "I will take scrapings from the leaves and make you a black tea to first soothe your system, to prime you for further medicinal steps necessary for your healing, my good sir." The little man approached the plant and made little scraping hand gestures over its leaves as related to the making of tea. "The leaf scrapings I fashion into a powder for you, and then blend. These with special herbs that I grow in my garden. Once mixed, the tea will take on a black appearance served with a warm piece of scone. It helps with absorption into the bloodstream to dull your condition and to encourage your system to life and fight back." While the little man fixed the tea, the buzzing noise began to increase. More and more the sounds came until they could not possibly be ignored. The source of the buzzing was flies, little flies that moved through the air, dull and slow in a kind of sleepy haze. landing on the corpse flower, crawling around its leaves and down inside of it. Their look was very distinct and immediately recognizable. Those are flies of the dead. Right, my good sir, quite right. They are flesh flies. They eat the decaying flesh matter of the newly dead or recently murdered. Seeing the disgust and fear behind the man's eyes, the little man comforted his new friend with a calming pat on the arm. Do not get excited, my good sir. It's all part of the healing and your cure. Cure? You mean, yes, my good sir, yes. Follow exactly what I say, no matter how bizarre or gruesome it may seem. The little man said with a slight chuckle that unnerved the man for a second, and you will be cured. A joy not felt in nearly a year shot through the man, coursing through his being like some kind of miracle cure. Here's your tea, sir. Relax and drink slowly. The man's eyes were drawn suddenly to the flesh flies again. What are they doing? They are pollinating, preparing, and making ready for your cure. There's a group of them now. How did they come so fast? Are they born from the corpse flower? In a manner of speaking, yes. The little man followed with a grin that made the man nauseous and slightly disturbed. Drink now, my good sir. Drink your tea and relax. Tonight you will rest easy, sleep and dream. I promise you. The little man's words came as reassuring, but the man couldn't help but detect a hint of satisfaction from the little man who came to help him that he found almost disgusting. A feeling that left him unsettled to the very core of what made him a human being. The man slept and slept all night and awoke with a freshness and vigor he could not recall the last time he felt. His movement, breathing, and awareness were not blocked by fits of sickness or plagued by weariness, pain, or exhaustion. He yelled out with glee and looked for his little friend who could not be found. He left late in the night, sir, saying he would return this evening to greet you in your newfound state of health and return vigor on the path of healing. All day long the man rushed through every moment and every hour to burn the daylight away till his new little friend would return, and return the little man did that night and was told by the man's servants. So good to see you, my good sir. So good to see you up and around. You look more alive, the little man chuckled to himself. Yes, and I feel more alive. Whatever did you do to the tea or put in it from the corpse flower is a wonder. But the plant has grown to emit a stench like I've never smelled a day in my life. A stench of the dead. Yes, good sir, yes. That is the very nature of the corpse flower, to emit such a vile and odious odor. Why, all of London knows this. Yes, of course, but I've never smelled anything like it. Yes, it is an unusual flower with many hidden and vital properties, my good sir. The little man went on to explain how the stench signifies the plant's readiness for the next stage of harvesting, for stronger medicine and the inevitable cure. Other creatures will be drawn to the flower, not just flesh flies. They are only the first of the pollination process. Next will be beetles, my good sir, little black beetles of a carrion nature. They too, like the flies, are flesh eaters, and quite potent, and quite necessary for the next stage in your cure. When the beetles pollinate the corpse flower, an enzyme will grow in their bodies. The flesh flies lay their eggs in the flower, eggs which are then eaten by the carrion beetles who produce the very enzyme you need for your cure. The beetles produce young they carry within their body, who feed on this enzyme. When consumed, the beetles will release the enzyme into your body, which releases their young who feed on the very consumption that plagues your health and threatens your life, my good sir. The man's eyes widened in horror and his jaw dropped open with shock and surprise. Eat them! Eat those beetles! He shrieked. No, my good sir, I will take the beetles and mash them up into a kind of paste which you will then consume. A paste you are free to spread on biscuits or eat with your hands. You wish to get better, sir, don't you? Why, look at you already. Look how your health and vitality are returning to you. How good you feel. Wouldn't you like more of that? Don't you want to meet an end where the final stop is your life returned, instead of ending in the grave? Though vital, the man sat weary and grave, his face long with confusion and bewilderment, but his eyes filling with hope, sensing the growing strength of the health within him, a warmth where there was only a frozen soul. The little man smiled, sensing in the man the turn of the tide. Yes, the man said again with a determined strength. I want more. Please, I say to you, cure me the rest of the way. Do all that is in your power to do. Bring me back the rest of the way. Bring me back all of the way, that I may know life once again. A look of joy greeted the man's eyes. From the little man, who now had a curious smile curled up around his lips, revealing cracked skin worn against a face that now looked to be much older than its present years. Another strange detail the man was no less disturbed by, but ignored, keeping his eyes and his mind on the prize, on his cure. The little man worked for nearly 2 hours mashing up the beetles as they talked, smooshing the battered mound of carrion beetles into a mashed pulp acceptable for consumption by the man. The squishy pounding, mixing, and stirring was almost more than the man could take, as nausea filled his inner being and robbed his newfound senses of reason, heightened senses at that. As the man noticed, he could see, smell, hear, touch, and taste with greater acuity than he remembered being capable of before, even before he got sick with tuberculosis. "Are you ready now, my good sir?" the little creature said calmly and politely, feeling drunk and nearly hypnotized by the sensation, feeling the nausea now passing. The man managed to stumble out but one word: "Yes." With that, the little man approached his good sir, raising the bowl of mashed carrion beetles to the man's lips, and then all went dim. All that could be heard were slurping sounds and chewing noises. A deep sleep gripped the man, more inclusive than before. It was as if his soul was put into a stasis, the kind of stasis worms go through before it changes into a butterfly. The next day was not the next day, but the next night, and the man felt strangely full and strangely fulfilled. So fulfilled, in fact, was the man that he noticed he was stronger, more spry, not only in agility, but in mind, his senses, and within his very soul. He had never in his life experienced anything quite like it, and his health for the first time in a year, his health was tip-top. No more coughing, no more blood, no more labored breathing. He began to tremble and call out with fear, his voice strained with uncertainty, his mind racing with no aim and nothing to cling to. His attention called out to a mirror, and he was pale still, as pale as he was when he was sick, perhaps now even paler. His hair looked alive, but followed a brittle course nonetheless, and was dry as straw to the touch, but did not share the same texture. Placing his hands to his chest, he shrieked out in an agonizing cry, "My heart, my life, God damn you, little thing, what have you done to me? Damn you!" The doors to his bedchamber moved open slowly, and through them came the half-consumed form of his servants, pale, malnourished, bleeding from the mouth with torn holes like bored gashes ripped into his skin, and the fleshy matter taken out and missing, almost as if something had eaten parts of him, leaving boreholes that stunk with a vicious decay that savagely bit at the senses. Looking on through the doorway, the man could see other fallen and macerated bodies of his servants laying throughout the hallway, half in and half out of other rooms. At the end of the hall, at the end of it all, stood the little man, hands behind his back calmly, and looking at the man who was so stunned by the gruesome nature of the macabre sight that lay before him that all he could do was stare and shudder within himself, while placing his hand over his mouth and gaping wide-eyed at the approaching little man. "I don't breathe. I don't breathe," the man repeated, and staring blankly at the little man. My heart is gone. Is my heart dead? I cannot feel it. I cannot feel it beat. Oh, dear Lord!" The man shrieked out once again, "What have I bargained with?" And in a dead, cold panic, the man whispered softly, like a little child, "What have I made a deal with? My humanity, dear God in heaven, my humanity. I need it back. I need my humanity returned to me." Breaking to his knees, now pleading and near on the brink of sobbing, help me, little friend. Return my humanity to me." "And what of your health? What of the rest of your life? Don't you want that back, my good sir? Why, look at yourself," showing the man his face in the mirror. "You're nearly there, my good sir. Only a little further, and your health and your life will be restored to you. The rest of your life. Now think of that, my good sir. My dear friend, what more delicious of a prospect could there be in life than to have yours restored to you, all the way to you?" The man's head slumped and then his shoulders. His form shrinking before the mirror, he began to sob again, noticing now this time the little droplets of red that lay on the floor underneath his face. As he touched the skin under his eyes, he found small trails of blood leading down to his chin. The little man patted him gently and tenderly on the back. "I understand, my good sir. I can give you back your humanity, but it must be done at the proper time. The corpse flower will grow red buds, red like the very blood in your body, that now lays upon the floor before you. As the flower blooms, it will become vulnerable. And then is the time to attack, and only then can you kill it. If you kill the flower at the time, it will reverse the process. So far, your humanity will return to you." "What of my health?" the man said. "Your health will increase till you are restored, and your health you will keep." The man's face released itself from a tense state of fear and desolation, immediately being replaced by the hope and vigor for life once again. The little man helped his good sir to his feet and told him to rest and relax, and when he wakes, he will greet his good sir, and the two of them will destroy the plant together. "How?" said the man. "Excuse me," the little man replied. "How do we kill it?" Fire. The only way to hurt and destroy the corpse flower is to burn it. All of it. But my house. Not to worry, the fire will be contained to the flower. The man awoke to find the little man waiting for him in his bedroom, standing by the door. Come, my good sir, the preparations have all been made. I will let you do the honors. The two walked out of the room, down the hall and into the room where the corpse flower resided. The stench was unbelievable. Lesser men would have vomited all over the floor at this point, but not the little man, and not his good sir. Handing the man a kerosene lamp, the little man instructed him to toss it on the flower, igniting it, killing it, and destroying it. Then and only then will this all be over. The man did as he was instructed and hurled the lamp at the flower. The glass shattered upon impact, sending broken shards all over the floor and kerosene dripping down the leaves of the plant. There was no fire, no burning, and the plant stood as it was. The buds had now bloomed and flourished, a bright, deep, bloody color. And the only sound that could be heard, the sound that cut the silence like a knife and hit the man like a crack of lightning, was the hideous and roaring laughter of the little man who had now removed his outer disguise to reveal what he truly is. A creature standing near 5 feet in height with little sharp teeth, leathery skin like a bat, but tan in color, like leather, with eyes, devilish little eyes, sunken back into his head. You fool, there is no cure, there is no way to destroy this plant, for this flower cannot die. Which is fortunate for you, because for you, to heal the rest of the way, you must consume these beautiful blooming blossoms. I have made you undead, not a vampire, but an undead creature who, in order to stay alive, in order to enjoy the rest of its life, must embrace this flower and all its beautiful aspects. It will always draw the flesh flies and the carrion beetles for your nourishment, and its own. You fiend, you damned thing! How can you leave me like this? Easily, the little fiend hissed. You wanted help, I provided. Did you think it wouldn't come with a price? You've taken enough. Oh no, my good sir, I took something else. I needed a piece of you. A piece to prepare you for the undeath. A piece she took during the seance. A piece you noticed but weren't aware of. I took a piece of your soul. The seance, the man muttered slowly to himself. Yes, my good sir. When she began the seance, she stole a piece of your soul, which you felt but did not see. The skull was instrumental as a focus in the theft of a piece of your soul. The room, the dread gloom, how my insides felt. Yes, good sir, it was taken from you then. The man slumped, realizing he could do nothing about it. The little fiend opened the man's front door. As he left, he looked over his shoulder. Don't forget to eat. Here's to your health, my good sir. The creature left down the stairs, laughing as it disappeared in the streets of London into the peace soup.